Buddy, we are going to consider 5 additional UFO crash retrieval cases. I'm going to provide you with the dates, times, locations, where I got the information so that you can verify this on your own. And it's good to be with all of you today. We'll go ahead and start our presentation here. And I want to follow up on a case that I looked at before here. And this is Wright Patterson Air Force Base, April 1962. There were 4 transient pilots with an additional pilot for a grand total of 5. This is from the 354th Tactical Air Command Fighter Wing, Wright Patterson Air Force Base, April 1962. Now they're running down this row of hangars at Wright Patterson Air Force Base, and they were looking for the 4th wall to complete this mobile handball court. As they're running down this row of hangars, one of these hangars doors was already open. They run inside, and what do they see? They see this 15-foot diameter dish-shaped craft propped up on 2 engine test stands. There was like a rope surrounding the craft with stanchions, and then there were multiple MPs with rifles guarding this. Now, the reference for this is UFO Crash Retrievals by Leonard Stringfield, page 88, case A6. And I mean, he's absolutely shocked at what he's seeing here because this wasn't supposed to be anything that they were allowed to see. They got there by accident. They were at the right place at the right time. This thing's about 15 feet in diameter, almost looks like a fat discus at a track and field. So let's go to the next slide where I've got the full color rendering. And this is what we came up with. This is Joseph Ray's full color rendering. Want to give him credit. And can you imagine seeing this back in 1962 with these guards here? And you can see these engine test stands. And there are so many cases of these UFO crash retrievals, dish-shaped craft being seen by pilots in secret hangars at Wright Patterson Air Force Base. There's just way too much evidence to push this all aside. Something is absolutely going on at Wright Patterson Air Force Base. So I want to move to the next slide to give you an idea what was going through this pilot's mind when he was interacting with this MP here. It says, the guard challenged by saying, "I don't think you're supposed to be here, sir." I replied to the affirmative, and we turned about face and departed, mumbling to ourselves that the good old US had developed or had all along flying saucers in service. So this to me really rings true. I think we can hang our hat on this military pilot here. So let's check in to see who's with us. Horizon, that thumbnail looks like Lance Corporal. Yeah, well, we'll get into that. Good call. 385, hello. Finally, you're back with the presentation. Yes, Solar Marshall, Polish, Tic Tac. Good. Mad Coup, the vehicles are bubbles, isolated or ability to isolate outside space and time. Very simple. Yeah, that could be the case. All right, let's move on to the next one here. I want to give credit to Ryan Wood and his recently published and updated Majic Eyes Only. So this is kind of an updated version of the one he published over 10 years ago. So it's called Majic Eyes Only, Earth's Encounters with Extraterrestrial Technology. There's about 104 additional UFO crash retrievals in this publication. Now, if you hook that up with Leonard Stringfield's crash retrieval book, where there's 119, now we're pushing to 2230. Let's just say that there's a small percentage in here that might not be completely accurate. Let's eliminate that. At the very least, we're talking about 200 cases here. And all we need is one of these cases to be true. And the whole case of non-reality for UFO crash retrievals completely falls apart. So this is another publication in conjunction with Leonard's publication that if you're really interested in this material, I highly recommend Ryan's book. So in Ryan's book, page number 217, this has never been illustrated, so this is a world exclusive. This is Santa Rosa, New Mexico, spring 1963, page 217 in the book. And what you have here is a nurse who wasn't a nurse. She worked in the X-ray lab. She wasn't a registered nurse, but she absolutely worked in the local hospital in the X-ray lab. So this just kind of gives you an idea of who she was. And if I go to the next slide here, a call came into the hospital that there was a crash 18 miles away from town. So she piles into the 1963 Ford Galaxy ambulance conversion, and they go to the crash site. When they get there, what do they see? What do they see when they get there? They see at least 3 ET bodies at this road intersection area, just a little bit off. There were 2 policemen in the background. There was some wreckage off to the side, and her very first impression was, it was what she was thinking, where are their parents? Small statured children looking ET corpses. All 3 were dead at the time. 3.5 to 4 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes. And she's shocked at what she's seeing. Now, 2 of the bodies were loaded onto gurneys and put into the back of the ambulance truck. The third one was also taken off the ground. He was also put in the back of the truck, and they went back to the hospital. Now, just to keep things moving here, to give you an idea of what happened next, I've kind of paraphrased what actually went down here. Now, within an hour of arriving at the hospital, the United States Air Force arrived and ordered all 3 bodies to be removed. They also confiscated all paperwork, notes, graph charts, and even the undeveloped x-rays. So she told this colonel that came in, you're not allowed to take those x-rays. They're not dry yet. They didn't care. They just ripped them down and confiscated everything. Now, this Air Force colonel, in passing, as he was leaving, told this x-ray laboratory technician, quote, "This did not happen. You are never to speak about this. And remember this, the government has a long arm." This is another one of these cases I think we can hang our hat on. You can bank on this one, another actual crash retrieval case. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Cherry Creek, Nevada, summer 1964. This is page 243 in the book. And what you're looking at here is this hint of a ghost town at Cherry Creek, Nevada. I'm going to go to this next slide here just to give you an idea. Here's the unincorporated town. Population in 2012 was only 72 people. So this gives you an idea of where this actually is. Let's go back here. Mark, thanks for the help. I really appreciate it. Alien World Airsoft. Is there any report of a crashed UFO that has some other color than silver? How come no red's blue? That's a very good question. I'm going to look into that. I'll get back on you. Thank you. Jason Thornton, keep up the great work. Michael, thank you very much. So this again is the map of where this happened. And this has to do with the Nevada Northern Railroad Company. And you can see off to the right here, you've got these copper ore cars. And so this main engine is pulling these copper ore cars around a curve. And what did they run into? This is a good one. I like this case. What they saw was a dish-shaped craft that augured in, and it absolutely ripped to shreds, teared up, mangled, and twisted the train tracks. So here you can see Rudy's drawing. So this came in, it flipped up inverted. There was a low-rise dome. There was a hull breach on the side of the craft, and I've got the actual statement from Ryan Wood's book here. The tracks were torn apart and thrown like pretzels. The Ely sheriff was alerted, who informed the Ely Armory to dispatch the local National Guard. The military ordered all the people on the train to board a truck and were driven back to Ely. Military examined the craft and found the bodies of at least 2 little pilots. Now, what you see in the foreground are 3 women ranchers. When this train stopped and they were being seen by the conductor here, they basically rode off the scene. Now, later, what happened to kind of wrap up this case here is that when the personnel on the train were put onto buses and shipped out of there, the military arrived, and I'm going to go to the next slide here. Eventually, a steam-powered wrecking crane was called onto the scene, loaded up on multiple trucks, and then shipped that craft out of here. So very interesting case within Ryan Wood's new publication, Majic Eyes Only. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. Okay. Great Lakes Naval Training Center, September 1973. This is a case that I've examined prior to, but I've got a new illustration here. So this is a gunnery school instructor. He guarded a Quonset-style building, 1973. This is page 89 in Leonard's book, case A7. Let's do a quick check in here. Why do these craft crash? Very good question. Back in June of last year, I gave a lecture near the National Press Club that indicates that we could be dealing with a rogue group within the military industrial complex that are targeting, tracking, and shooting these craft down using directed energy weapons, using scalar wave weaponry. So that might be what's going on. Now, the reason why is to exploit, number one, the free energy propulsion system associated with these vehicles, and number two is for the advanced weapons technology. So that might be the reason why they're shooting these things down here. Yes, Mark, the craft did flip over. Must have been some type of radar. Yep, could be some type of radar. Our strong radars are interfering with the UAP flying systems. Yes, Orbito, greetings from Yemen. Hey, thanks a lot. Okay, so we'll go on to the next slide here. This was the very first pass drawing, AutoCAD drawing that I did based on the eyewitness testimony. So this thing was a teardrop-shaped craft, 35 feet in length, 12 feet high. There was a blue coronal discharge along the craft itself. It was being propped up on a pedestal. I'm going to go to the next slide here. Here's my SolidWorks rendering, and you can see that, you know, the military would definitely be interested in recovering a craft like this. Here's Rudy's first pass drawing. So you've got this platform, this military personnel goes into this Quonset-style hut. He's met with two CBs. They go down this long corridor. They make a left-hand turn, and they go into this warehouse area within this Quonset-style hut. And he sees this 35-foot-long teardrop-shaped USO sitting on this pedestal, and he delivers the notation to the high-level military brass. He does an about-face, leaves the area, but he got a good look at this thing. He got a real good look at this. Really, we'll do a quick check in here. Looks like an escape pod. Yeah, could very well be an escape pod. I'm going to go to the next slide here. Now, here's Joseph Ray's full-color rendering, and you can see this blue coronal discharge. And this is something that is happening multiple times, retrieving the craft, bringing them in hangars, and then propping these up on either scaffolding, wooden platforms, or pedestals. This is something that we've seen multiple times here. Now, I want to go to the next slide. 2 weeks earlier, prior to all this going on, the primary eyewitness met a sailor in San Diego who told him that a teardrop-shaped UFO was shot down by a guided missile destroyer between Hawaii and the mainland in June of 1973. So we're talking about the same craft, and this gentleman met with someone from a missile destroyer 2 weeks prior to Great Lakes Naval Training Center where he saw it. So we have independent confirmation from two sources now that confirm this is real. Go to the next. Now, what this sailor told our witness is that the Glomar Explorer was used to bring this thing off the seabed and recover it. So now we've got Howard Hughes involved. We've got the CIA involved. And now we're looking at a bigger picture here. I'm going to go on the next slide here. How CIA divers retrieve Russian secrets. San Francisco Examiner, March 19th, 1975. A Matter of Risk, the incredible inside story of the CIA's Hughes Glomar Explorer mission to raise a Russian submarine. During 1973 to 1974, a Russian submarine was recovered from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. However, that's not all that was recovered. So my question is if they recovered this USO from the bottom of the ocean, what other things did they recover? Did they recover other UFOs, other UAP, other USOs from the bottom of the ocean? What do we not know about Project Jennifer? What else beside this Russian submarine and perhaps multiple UFOs have been recovered? That's something I want to find out. Let's go on to the next case here. And then just to wrap this one up, according to RK's informant, the object was retrieved by the Glomar Explorer, shipped to Hawaii, and then sent stateside, and finally to Chicago. A sketch of the craft was drawn by the sailor, and according to RK, there was little doubt that it was the same object he had seen in the Quonset hut. So again, we've got independent confirmation from two sources now that something of a teardrop shape was recovered by the Glomar Explorer. So we've got it now. Okay, next one. We'll do a quick check-in here. Hit that like button, Crypto Alchemist. Yes, it was accents to begin with, but now radars are even more powerful and accurate. Great information and research as always, Crypto Alchemist. Thank you very much. Okay, now what you're looking at is a screenshot of Jonathan Weygand. This is a very interesting case. I have to give credit to Dr. Stephen Greer for tracking this witness down, for interviewing him, and vetting his background. So credit goes to Dr. Greer. Now, what you're looking at here is a screenshot from an interview that Martin Willis did with Jonathan back on 9/5/23. So, of course, I started digging. I looked at the interview. I took notes. And what we want to do is do a deep dive into what Jonathan saw. I'm going to go to the next slide here and break this down. Now, who is he, right? John Weygand, Lance Corporal E3 Marines. Now, he was in the Bolivian jungle. This is the second half of April 1997. He was in a Humvee with 2 other personnel. They go about a half a mile into the jungle. And what do they see? They see this egg-shaped, teardrop-shaped craft tipped up at a 45-degree angle, 65 feet in length, 45 feet high. It had embedded itself into this rocky granite cliff at a 45-degree angle. He said that there was a ridge that wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft itself. It had multiple hull breaches on the bottom of it, spewing out this oily fluid that had a kind of an oily rainbow appearance. There were multiple shark gill slits on the bottom of this thing that you can see in Rudy Strong, who did a really good job. Now, he mentioned that this acrid odor was coming off of this oil that made his nose burn. Some of it got on his clothes that started burning through his clothes. So this is kind of a acidic type liquid, something that you don't want to touch. So this is Rudy's first pass drawing, our final rendering. Now, he also mentioned that on the top section of the craft, there was an egg-shaped porthole with what looks to be an ET arm hanging out of this. And this is all in the second part of April 1997 within Martin Willis's podcast interview with John Weygand. Okay, let's do a quick check-in here. Dolfino, okay, I remember this story. JBW, Martin Willis podcast. Okay, Brooker, Zach, good question. Okay, let's move on. Now, we want to go to the full color rendering here to give you an idea of what this thing actually looks like in the jungle if we were there back in April 1997. So here is Joel Payne's illustration. Okay, so we've got the egg-shaped craft in the Bolivian jungle, tipped up at a 45-degree angle. We've got in the foreground to the left, we've got the 3 personnel. We've got the liquid coming out of the hull breaches. We've even got this ET arm sticking out here. Now, can you imagine seeing this April 1997? Now, when you look at Dr. Greer's interview that was done back in 2000, and you compare that to the 2023 interview that was done by Martin Willis, you'll see that this is a real witness. This is someone that we want to consider. This is someone that has impeccable credentials, someone that we can bank on. So I want to thank you for your attention. Please like, share, and subscribe on the bottom. I'm going to continue doing these UFO crash retrieval cases. And again, I want to thank you for your attention.